In a world obsessed with rankings, two men dare to chisel greatness out of metaphorical granite, one wildly subjective opinion at a time. This show, every episode, we select four icons from a single topic and immortalize them in our own personal halls of fame. Subjective? Absolutely. Debatable? Always. Set in stone? Until next week. Welcome to the Mount Rushmore Show, where your top four says everything about you. I'm Mike Mintz. He's Joe Mintz, and Joe, it's the two of us, the OGs, for the first time in like 3 weeks, and we are running it back. And we're talking about this is not the best of list. This is the best should have been and didn't get there. We'll get to it, man. But welcome back to the show, man.
Yeah, it's good to be just you and I again, Mike. But I do love the guests. It's fun. I
Yeah.
want to do one with Jake. I thought that
Oh
was
yeah.
great listening to you guys. And then obviously Jimmy anytime. Yeah, I thought he brought a good report. Just we were talking before the podcast recording. It's just banking in the time. So for those listening that are used to maybe 30, 45-minute hangs, when we got a guest on, we tend to stretch it out close to an hour and a half. And if you enjoy that ride, then all the power to you. Just banking on our schedules. You're a busy guy with two kids, so sometimes easier said than done. But we'll keep doing the guest thing. I think it's fun.
Yeah. Plus, with Jimmy, you got to add about 30 to 45 minutes of antagonism right there. So
Yeah, and I call it Jimmy time. We schedule you and me, Mike, me and you are like usually we're like clockwork that we do at the same time every week. Whereas Jimmy's like, I'm at breakfast. Can we do an hour later? I'm like, sure, fine. But
yeah.
he brings the heat, which makes it worth
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, Joe. Well, we're back up. There is no football this weekend.
You
What's
don't
going
count the Pro
on?
Bowl?
Oh, okay. Well, do we count the Pro Bowl? I don't know if I've counted the Pro Bowl for quite some time now. So,
Well, it's flag football now, and the controversy is the reserve quarterback for the AFC that you may have heard. Um, I think he threw for 800 yards this year, maybe a Browns record for all I know, and it's Shador Sanders. He made it as a reserve for Drake May, who's playing in the Super Bowl next week, obviously, over MVP finalist tonight, Trevor Lawrence.
wow. I mean, for a show talking about snubs, Joe. But it's not like the Pro Bowl's a popularity contest. Oh, wait, hang on. It is. It is a popularity contest. So maybe that's why.
Yes, I did also hear in the offseason, as he was the fifth round rookie as a third string quarterback, sold more jerseys than Patrick Mahomes. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh my. Once or twice, yeah. So.
Yeah, jersey sales and Pro Bowls are all strictly kids on TikTok buying stuff and putting in votes. It's no actual analysis that goes into it.
Well, I'm not planning on watching, but I did want to kind of recap our picks. Do you remember who you had picked to win or make it to the Super Bowl from last week's episode, Joe?
Yes, I was wrong. I picked Pat's Rams.
You got 50%, man. Me too. And I had the
Yeah,
exact same picks as you. So, yeah.
it was kind of more just Pat's Rams has been a legacy Super Bowl. We're used to it with Kurt Warner and Brady, then Brady and Goff. It felt like just timing, and also I'm just putting my stake in quarterbacks just over team. You think about Drake May and Stafford as two hot guys, but the best teams are in there, especially when you had a backup quarterback in Denver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the music is for the halftime show is controversial, tight-lipped. I guess they're keeping a lid on everything. And
Well,
I
we know
don't,
it's Bad Bunny,
we
who's
know that
also
much.
nominated tomorrow night.
We know that much, and yeah, and that is a nice little segue. Joe, do you want to set up the episode here?
Yeah, we had some stuff going on this week between Snubs and then the Grammys tomorrow, which brings us to two things: celebration and controversy. Because for every winner, there's a debate. Hence why we have this show. And personally, to some of my social demise, I enjoy too much is debate. And for every legendary artist, there's at least one career-long snub. So speaking of snubs, we've got a major one in the sports world too. Six-time Super Bowl winning head coach Bill Belichick was left off the first ballot Hall of Fame list. And it's got a lot of people fired up. So before we even touch music, we've got to talk about what a snub really means and how legacy versus timing versus politics, that all plays into the awards. So, Mike, I want to start with you. When you saw the Belichick not making the first ballot list, what was your initial reaction?
I was frustrated. I'm frustrated with the system. This shouldn't have happened. This is coming from a guy that's not a Belichick wrecked a good 20 years of my life because I'm a Dolphins fan, right? And to watch him defeat us, I'm not a fan of Belichick. That being said, he absolutely deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. This is frustrating beyond I'm struggling to put together the words. And I've read, Joe, and I'm sure you have or heard, I've read some of the people that have made, they've come out with their apology, like explanations of why, and none of them sit right with me. I don't like this at all.
I agree. And this one hits home to me as well. I don't know if you knew this. I grew up a Patriots fan. I'm a Commanders fan now, formerly a Redskins fan. My
You
dad, your
recovered.
uncle,
You
is and your father grew up in New England, and they were Patriots fans in a rough era. And when I started watching football in the late 90s, early 2000s as a kid, that was the heyday of the Patriots. And my dad had some love there. It felt like a great team to watch. And I was all in on Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I was riding that wave. You call me a fair weather fan if you want. I leaned in on the, well, my dad's from New England thing, but I eventually grew out of them because we didn't live in red zone era like we do today. It was
Mhm.
hard to watch the Patriots. So as I got older, I became more disconnected. And also, when I watch the team now, it's not the team I grew up on. The nostalgia's not there when I don't see Belichick and Brady. They're the guys I grew up with and I loved. And everyone had opinions on, whether it be good or bad. It was love or hate, right, for many people. And I always looked at it as people that hate him want to be him, right? And there was certainly an element of that, is you envy their success. Hence the Spygate, Deflategate, many things I think were overblown in an effort to tear down a annoying dynasty that we tend to do. And I think that plays into why he didn't get in. I think it is just analysis. I think he should be in, as almost everyone does reacting to this. I don't think it's much debate other than the people actually voting. Is Spygate is probably an element. I think about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I think of people like Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, guys that are the greatest to ever play the sport that aren't getting let in because in the voting mind, they sacrifice the integrity of the sport. And that could have been the element that you just can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So now it leads into question not why he wasn't first ballot, but will Belichick ever be allowed in because of Spygate? I don't know. I don't know anyone publicly that's said this is or isn't, but I'm sure there's a series of old boy club voters that will never vote him in because of that. And again, this is presumption, not from the horse's mouth of voters of as I think to why. And I think the post Brady narrative hurt him. To see Brady go on and win a Super Bowl, to see the way it ended in New England with the losing seasons with different coaches and quarterbacks, it didn't play well for him. And we're just so close from that happening. We look back 10 years from now, we're going to forget the couple of losing seasons. We'll only remember the accolades. But it's still fresh on top of North Carolina failure. It just makes it hard. But I can't think of better PR for Belichick than this happening. How many people have gone out publicly to say how bad a decision this was? I don't think Belichick realizes how many people love him until something like this happens because he's had a rough stretch of years.
No, and I agree. And I would have never guessed I would have ever defended Bill Belichick in any capacity. And for me to even come out and, as a lifelong Dolphins fan, to come out and be like, oh, that's unfair, I think speaks volumes. I know what you're saying, Joe. I know the Spygate. I know Deflategate. I know his losses at the end and the Tom Brady things that went down. But none of that is, like I'm saying, this is not compelling enough evidence to me for me to understand how this could happen.
I My final opinion is Belichick's probably happy with this because controversy actually can boost PR, which is in this case. Snubs often create more legacy conversation than easy inductions. And honestly, that dynamic exists in music more than anywhere else, which brings us directly to our subject today, which is the Mount Rushmore of artists never to win a Grammy. And this was an interesting list. I didn't know what to expect going into this as I started researching it. But Mike, what did you uncover both from looking into the snubs that we've seen to how you crafted your Mount Rushmore?
The first thing I noticed was the absurdity of some of these. It's almost like like I kind of said before we started, there's some of mine are Belichick level snubs here. These are surprising. I have no idea how some of these people have not won a Grammy. And sometimes, like with Oscars and stuff, you have the makeup wins. Like I remember in oh, the John Wayne getting the win for True Grit, right? He didn't really deserve it, but he deserved it for a lifelong career.
Al
Um,
Pacino, Scent of Woman. That's a
Scent of a
Godfather
Woman.
award.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the makeup wins, and I'm surprised that some of these artists never got it. That's the first thing is the absurdity of some of these choices. And also like just getting into how the system all works is kind of fun, and some of the history to the Grammys themselves. So I had a fun time kind of digging in, but there's a little frustration. These shows always are rough for me, Joe, because we did the basketball never to win a ring, right? And you look back and almost kind of like these are the ones that got away, and it's tough. So.
Yeah, well, we look back on the accomplishments of some of these people in any profession, and we're like, how did this not happen? But then you look at the actual year and who they went up against, and it makes sense sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. Like, I remember people said that about Leo DiCaprio
Hmm.
until he won the revenue. How has he not won? And then you're like, all right, Aviator, that was great, but he lost to Ray and Jamie Foxx, which is one of iconic performance, right? Like, sometimes just timing in the years. Because some of these people had longevity and had great careers, but they never had that defining moment or that defining album in this case. So when I was looking into this, it was a mix of people that I like, along with in some cases albums that should have probably won in hindsight, and other times they did maybe not, but more of a lifetime achievement should have won a Grammy, if you know what I mean.
No, and I do, and a lot of the picks on my list, I don't even think are there's for this show I always pick one that's kind of my wild card that means a whole lot to me and that other people might not. But honestly, this list is I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by any of these names. Let's put it that way. So.
Well, I was going to start by, before we get into our picks, just taking us back a moment to how the Grammys became what they are. I found out they started in 1959, and it was originally a way for the music industry to recognize artistic and technical excellence. So it was very traditional in the beginning. We were looking at jazz, classical, vocal performance. It was very, I'll call it establishment driven. But over time, it started to change. Rock starts entering the picture, pop starts dominating, hip hop fights for legitimacy, global music started rising, streaming definitely changed everything. And then it became popularity versus artistry as the central debate. I would say today it's part artistic recognition, part industry politics, part cultural moment, part just marketing engine. And with that, we've seen some of the greatest artists in history never actually win one competitively. So, Mike, do you want to start off with your first pick?
I will. And for those of you that are listening that are like, where's the name even come from? I did some research. A Grammy is named after the gramophone, which is a bygone piece of technology. Everybody else knows it better as the record player, right? I guess there's still people that have it. And you would guess that in the 68 years that they've been doing these, that the winners they've got them mostly right. And keyword is mostly because honestly, I'm going to start off with my number one. I cannot fathom how Queen is not a Grammy winner. If you don't know Queen, by the way, you're wrong. They're one of the greatest rock bands of all time, formed in London in 1970, named after Her Majesty, right? Legendary Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor, one of the greatest bass players, John Deacon. 15 original studio albums. They've remained active for over 5 decades. Massive hits. Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. Another one by Sebastian. That's off the top of my head here, kids. The reality is I just finished a mini series on this channel about the best needle drops in sports movies, and Queen was essentially two-thirds of my final episode. These guys are one of the greatest best-selling acts of all time, 300 million records sold, greatest hits, 18 number one worldwide singles. How does this happen? I don't know. They are my number one pick for the greatest snubs as far as the Grammys go.
Mike, great pick. We're gonna share this. Um, they were, and Queen means a lot to me. I remember my very first iPod. I think it was the iPod Nano,
Oh yeah.
and I remember I had the Queen album, and it would just I would be in the car with my headphones in, just listening to it over and over. The amount of times I heard "We Will Rock You," I just loved them. I was obsessed, and they were stadium rock innovators, one of the biggest bands ever. They had this genre blending songwriting too, which is so unique. And obviously Freddie Mercury, just an iconic vocalist. And I'm just presuming maybe why they didn't win a Grammy at the time. I thought maybe they were too theatrical for that era of traditional voters, and the genre blending confused their category placement. It kind of feels like you have like musical or comedy versus drama, and you kind of have they didn't know where to fit. Rock often under rewarded in top categories at that time. But if I think about their best album, and it's A Night at the Opera, 1975,
So good. Yeah.
um, which did not win that year, and the album of the year instead was Paul Simon. Still crazy after all these years. It That album of Queen's Night at the Opera is now considered one of the greatest rock albums ever. But I think their theatrical rock style didn't align with the taste. Um, so historically speaking, it's less lost and more overlooked entirely, which actually I think strengthens the snub for those guys and helps the legitimacy of the album.
Yeah, for sure. And that's an album that people didn't get at the time. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody off that album only reaches number nine. It's not until 1992 with Wayne's World releases that it reaches all the way to number two. You're right. I mean, this makes sense, but on the same level, Joe, it doesn't make any sense. What's your number two? I guess since we're sharing that one, so
I'm gonna go with the Beach Boys,
such a good pick.
one of the most influential American bands ever, and they pioneered studio production techniques. The sounds they would use in the studio for animal sounds was insane. I remember watching that movie Love and Mercy, which may or may not have been on one of your Mount Rushmores for movies,
It
as we're talking
absolutely
about
was.
music biopics, I think,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, they were massive cultural and sonic influence. And I think the reason they didn't win, I think they're just ahead of their time sonically. Pop was seen as lightweight during their prime, kind of the cheesy beach band versus what we know to respect now about them. And production innovation wasn't always rewarded back then. But Pet Sounds is certainly the key album they would have seen one in hindsight. Um, it's frequently ranked among the greatest albums ever made. Forget genre related. But modern critics, I would say, view the lack of a win as, let's just say, absurd.
I think that's fair. And Joe, I'm going to piggyback here. We're not going to share this one surprisingly. I love the Beach Boys. They were right on the periphery. But Pet Sounds is one of my all-time favorite albums altogether. It's an absolute masterpiece. And I think what's really interesting about them is they had not really done music like that up until that point. I mean, to their sonic shift is one of the craziest moments. They're going to, along with the Beatles, they're going to shift music in the 1960s into the 70s. And they're going to change the game. That album in particular is an egregious snub for the Grammys. It is one of the greatest all time.
One thing I'll say is some of these people lost legends. Like I love Paul Simon. Simon and
Of
Garfunkel I
course.
think are great. I don't think his best album was the one that lost to Queen, but in '66 it was Frank Sinatra, September of My Years. This was a late career landmark record for Sinatra, helping kind of cement that mid '60s comeback. So it's hard. I would still take Pet Sounds over that, but he's not losing to nobody, right?
That's fair, and I guess that puts it a little bit into context. And yeah, but that's a tough one. The Beach Boys had a long career too, shifting all over the place. The reason I'm leaving them off, I guess, is I have other artists, but it's almost like I didn't like some of the earlier stuff. I like their later. I don't know. There's a mixture there. So, all right, Joe. I
So who's your
guess.
number two then? If you want to share
Well,
this one, I thought for
the,
sure we share this. I thought if there's one we share, it'd be this.
Well, that's going to make this one even worse. This is my wild card pick,
This is your
probably
dogma
something.
pick.
Yeah, this is my dogma. This is Guns N' Roses. Th This one means more to me probably than to most people. 1985, the most dangerous band in the world, right? Axl Rose, Slash. We're talking hits like Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City. These things, November Rain. I mean, I could go on and on. Unbelievable for but this is a band that burns bright and burns out pretty quickly. By the time they hit the mid 90s, they're done. So maybe a decade of awesomeness. But that 1987 debut, Appetite for Destruction, best-selling first album in US history. And if you listen to it today, first of all, the songs are still played. I mean, like I just brought up, Welcome to the Jungle is still played. Massive cultural impact. Live and Let Die, their cover. They're going to lose to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which makes sense, I guess, if we're putting this thing into context and everything. But I absolutely love Guns N' Roses, and when I say I'm leaving off the Beach Boys for these guys, that just makes it look bad. But there it is.
I mean, I can't argue that pick. It's a Guns N' Roses. If there was a karaoke category of the Grammys, there it'd be unanimous. That's how I think of them as just the songs to sing along to you. Whether or not you love Guns N' Roses, you know of them, and there's probably a song or two that you just can't help but rock out to.
Dude, one of my favorite stories comes from Bob Dylan, and he was asking Axl when they were going to cover one of his songs, and that led Axl Rose to cover the version of Knocking on Heaven's Door. Later on, they were interviewing Bob Dylan, and he said he didn't care at all for the cover. He just wanted to make money because they were so big at the time, which I love that story. So,
Good pick. My next one is going to be big name, but no surprise. When as you look back in hindsight as to why, and that's Bob Marley.
oh yeah.
So obviously he globalized reggae, cultural icon, political and spiritual influence worldwide. Uh, but reggae category didn't exist until after his death. So the genre bias was certainly there at the time. And international artists historically under-recognized. I think if he was eligible today, it'd be very different. His biggest albums being Exodus in 1977, but Legend later became one of the best-selling albums ever. Um, Mainstream rock and pop acts really dominated that category at the time. And it's certainly become one of the most glaring omissions ever. And 77 was actually the year Stevie Wonder won for Songs in the Key of Life, which is also considered one of the greatest albums of all time and one of the most universally praised album of the year winners in Grammy history. So I can't say in hindsight to pick him. It's just the biggest artist not to have one is Bob Marley to me.
It's even surprising to say it out loud that Bob Marley doesn't have a Grammy, right? I mean, like the guy personified a cultural shift, towards almost the invention, not the invention, but to make reggae pop and to bring it to a global audience. And it's stuck around. I mean, it's influenced all sorts of music moving forward. The guy was an interesting cat too. They made a documentary, kind of a biopic, I think, on his life that just came out, what, last year or the year before.
Yeah.
And he's and so that's returned him to some of this cultural relevance. And then you start to go, man, how did this guy, not make it? And I don't know. That's a tough one, man.
Well, he didn't. Reggae didn't. He made reggae. Like now would be different. But this list feels like a rob Peter to pay Paul. Like if Bob Marley did win that year, then I might have Stevie Wonder on my list instead for that album. Like it's hard. I mean, as I go through this, other than Frank Sinatra, who won too many Grammys, I'm like share the wealth here. Um, everyone else, I'm like I'm glad that they got it too. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. We're not sharing, but I guess I wanted to kind of I got a nice segue pick here, Joe. And this is my number three. This is Diana Ross. And I think of her in the same kind of, it was Bob Marley or Diana Ross. I looked at both of those like, how is it? But Diana Ross, I know more of her songs and I know more of her career with the Supremes and the 26 solo studio albums. Just unbelievable female entertainer of all time. And defines R&B, pop genres, never won a competitive Grammy Award in 13, she was nominated 13 times. This one is tough for me because I go, even if it's before my time, I'm certainly aware of her songs and the Supremes and basically this Motown legend. This one is surprising. How did this happen?
Yeah, big name. I can't say I'm a huge Diana Ross fan. I mean, I know of her, I know of her songs, but I'm not seeking Diana Ross, so to speak.
I mean, that's fair. And I guess that's why I'm like the same with Bob Marley, right? Like I'm like, it's not my style of music. But I understand that it's a snub. Diana Ross is a bit in the past, so my last one's going to be more modern, but this one was the one where I go, how did this happen? Like
Well,
that's
who
the
did
one
she
that's
lose
like,
to?
well, that okay, so you're going to ask me a question. I did not do my
What was
specific
like her
history
biggest
here. So,
moments?
well, she was nominated 13 times.
So
Well, I
she,
mean,
it was more just a lot of nominations, never one big year.
yeah, I guess if we're looking at my kind of arguments, I guess maybe I didn't look at it as it's maybe some of the same criteria you did. This is more of like I look at a name and I go, they should have won a Grammy at some point. I didn't break down the context of, oh, who did they go up against or any of those kind of things. And so I guess in that case, you might go, well, it's not that egregious. It's egregious looking back in hindsight. My next one, though, Joe, I promise, is going to be a lot more
This is
intense.
not the
So
biggest snubs of all time. This is the
sure.
best artist not to have a Grammy.
Which I
So
think Diana Ross and Bob Marley
I'd
fit that
agree.
category.
You
Yeah.
could probably,
So.
because I even agreed that Stevie Wonder maybe should have won that Grammy, even though Bob Marley, it's crazy he doesn't have one, but I can understand why. So I'm kind of the same boat. If some of these people might be better off with lifetime achievement Grammys than actually the year they put out the music Grammy.
Well, and to be clear, she does have a lifetime achievement
There you
Grammy. So
go.
that's,
That's
at least
makeup
they
and all.
recognized her in that category.
Does that still count as a Grammy?
I don't think so personally. I mean, it seems like it's a participation ribbon, you
But do
know.
they give you the Grammy trophy?
Oh, dude, I can't tell you the last time I've seen a Grammy Awards
Yeah,
ceremony.
it's
It
not
would
like
have
an
been
Oscar. We all know what that looks like.
yeah, it's
I don't know
like,
what a Grammy
well,
trophy
there
looks
there
like.
is. It's the record player with the big. I've seen it. Yeah, I don't know if you get one for a lifetime achievement award. So yeah, I don't know.
My was that your last or your
That was
third?
my third. I still have one more. So
Okay. My final one is Jimi Hendrix.
such a good pick. Yep.
Widely considered the greatest guitarist ever. He completely reshaped rock guitar. And he was a very legendary live performer. Obviously, before my time, I've only seen him on video. And it's impressive to watch the things he would do with a guitar. And he had a very short career window. He's in the famous 27 club of
Mhm.
artists, whether it be Hollywood or music industry, that passed away at that age. And rock was not fully respected by Grammy voters yet during his time. And psychedelic and experimental music, especially, was very undervalued. He kind of had two big albums. It was 67 and 68 with Are You Experienced and Electric Ladyland. Um, but he lost out to more conventional vocal albums and pop records. It certainly ages as one of the most indefensible award misses. And I think if he lived longer, he probably would have put out something that would have won, or maybe in your point to start this thing, a makeup album potentially. But he did lose to Frank Sinatra, who felt like, come on, man, he already had one or two. We couldn't squeeze this new guy in. Um, it was, and Frank's was a more retrospective style album celebrating his career. It was released for his 50th anniversary in show business, which at the time very much aligned with Grammy voters' tastes. And then the next year was the Beatles. And if the Beatles hadn't won for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band,
They'd be
that
right
would
here.
be on our list. We would have that shared along with Queen, which is one of the most famous Grammy wins ever. Sometimes just timing, like when these things come out, because that win is a landmark album that reshaped popular music and studio production ever. Um, and the Beatles' only nomination, surprisingly, with their
Hmm.
impressive career. But I'm glad at least they won one. But that I understand why Jimmy didn't win. We look back and we can see he's one of the he reshaped music and guitar, and that's kind of how I looked at my list. Is when I think of best artists, I don't think of that one moment. I think of people that reshape music itself, and all four people I picked in my mind did that for me.
Jimi Hendrix, as a guitar player, there's no guitar player that doesn't look at Jimi Hendrix and go, this guy changed the game. And he made electric guitar something almost different. It became a beautiful piece of music artillery, I don't know, or arsenal, if you will, because he changed the way it could be seen to be played. It became pyrotechnics. It became big time solos. It became guitar riffs and wah-wah pedals that had the Star Spangled Banner at the beginning of Woodstock by the way, is a moment in music history that's going to go down. There should be a statue built to it. His playing alone, but also his songs all along the Watchtower, right? You also think of, Purple Haze. My personal favorite, if you don't know Jimi Hendrix, throw on the intro to Voodoo Child, right? And you're going to be like, oh, I get it. I get why this guy is so much of a cultural touchstone on a very short timeline, right? Two albums. That's incredible for him to have that kind of influence. But you don't get guys that are far more technical and speed based like an Eddie Van Halen unless you have a starting point at Jimi Hendrix. And so for that reason alone, it is an egregious snub. I agree, Joe.
And he's got some of the best songs in movies too. Him
Oh
and the
yeah.
Doors kind of have that locked down. And if you're going to listen to Jimi Hendrix, if you want to take it up a notch, watch him on video performing these songs live. That's the most
That's
impressive part because the music he's playing is impressive alone, but to watch the way he does it, it's very showboaty. Like behind the head and the way he's moving a guitar, it's insane to watch his live performances.
I think he's the guy that took lead guitarists and made them separate from the band. And it's like you think of lead singers as a front man. After Jimi Hendrix, you had front man lead guitarists at that point because it became a premier instrument in rock. Yeah, great pick, Joe.
Are you sharing this? Is that what you're saying?
I am not sharing this, and
Okay.
that's why
It's hard.
this
It's hard.
this show is hard because especially now with my last pick, and I'm always second guess myself, but I'm picking it, I'm sticking with it, and I actually agree with this, and you might disagree, and that's okay, Joe. That's what the show's about. Is this is your top four says everything about you. This is oh man, Katy Perry. I
You know
know.
what's
Hold
funny? I
hold.
had in my head, if you're not, as long as you don't put Katy Perry with Jimi Hendrix, that's the first thing that popped in my head when I said that. I was like, do I mention that? But he's not going to go there.
I am gonna go there, and this is not a knock against Jimi Hendrix. Love what he did, but man, Katy Perry, this is tough. I worked in radio for about 7 years, and during that time period, Katy Perry, that whole pop movement with Lady Gaga, this is when things were happening. They were unavoidable. They were an inflection point in pop music that I think has kind of gone away, unfortunately. You don't have to love it, but you have to respect the amount of what they were able to do in that. Yes, it's theatrical. Yes, it's just super pop to all new levels. It's Michael Jackson taken to the extreme in a lot of these cases and then made safe. 13 Grammy nominations. She's kind of become blacklisted as of late, but she was on an absolute tear with albums. You think about her first album with I Kissed a Girl and Wake Up in Vegas, but it's that second one, Teenage Dream. Joe, I mean, I love music history, and we're talking number one singles. First of all, not every band even gets a number one single. If you are in a big band like, say, Aerosmith or Van Halen, you've got one apiece. That's true. To get a number one single is not an easy task. Katy Perry had five number one singles on one album, tying Michael Jackson's Bad. That alone, that Teenage Dream album, whether you love it or hate it, you cannot argue with the statistics and the success. And personally, I'm a fan of all music. I did a thrash metal episode. This is not coming from somebody that's just a pop music guy. That's a great album. It's a great album, great songs, totally different, but I love it still the same. I'm very, very diverse. All right, Joe, tear me apart. Hit me.
Just two dudes talking about Katy Perry on a Mount Rushmore. Mike, we need to talk. Respectfully, but also not at all respectfully about this decision. You chose them over the Beach Boys, Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Marley. This is equivalent of drafting a kicker in the first round. Um, I love you, man, but this is an all-time recency bias meets top 40 radio pick. You passed on the band that reinvented studio production, the greatest guitarist who ever lived, and the global icon who defined an entire genre and movement. And you said, yeah, but have you considered Teenage Dream? That's like building a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks and going with a guy who just had a really hot September. Katy Perry is great, and I did like to, Kiss the Girl. It was funky, sing to it. It's not winning a Grammy is not a surprise. The Beach Boys not winning one is historical negligence. Jimi Hendrix not winning is one of, I would say, institutional blindness. And Bob Marley is more of a cultural malpractice. But, it's your Mount Rushmore, Mike. This everything it says about you. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it, and the criticism is not completely unfair, Joe. But I will say that I'm not saying those, well, it's it. I am saying that she deserves it over those bands, quite literally. But I'm also saying that if I was making a mixtape, the beauty of what I love about music is I'm all over the place. It's an eclectic mix, right? And I have legendary artists Diana Ross and Queen on here, and I have 90s bands or 80s bands with Guns N' Roses. But to be honest with you, I like pop music, man. And if it comes down to pop and the biggest snubs, it's Diana Ross and Katy Perry. And yeah, recency bias, sure. Personal bias, that's my mountain. I'll carve it. But honestly, I'm not that opposed to throwing on Hot and Cold or California Girls and then just enjoying 3 minutes of whimsy.
This feels like you're turning the show into ESPN First Take, where we're saying things for clicks, but we don't actually believe them.
And that is not true. I will stand by this pick, and I truly believe it. I would never do that. This is my mountain. I'm putting it up there because I truly believe this. I agree. This is probably not a consensus pick, and the criticism that's levied at it is fair. But if I'm being honest, at the end of the day, I'm putting some of these songs on my playlist, no doubt.
Well, the good news is this is set in stone. So you will always have this, and even if you change your mind later, it's done. And I will always have this. And my thought on you is, hey, Mike, this is coming from a guy that picked Katy Perry in his Mount Rushmore. That will always be a stain, a tattoo on your forehead you can never take off, my friend.
Yeah, if I'm ever arguing with somebody, you can point to that one. Look, Katy
Yes.
Perry's on his Mount Rushmore, so you lose. So,
Well, I would like to close with some predictions here, Mike.
okay.
So I want your thoughts on album of the year.
For this year,
Have you looked at the nominees?
I have not. Let me pull them up for the album of the year, Grammys this year. Let me just
And
take a
I'm
look.
not picking based on anyone I personally listened to. Understanding the
Okay.
Grammys through research of this, you realize there's a lot of politics and momentum involved. So that's how I crafted my pick. Less about the actual music.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at quite a few of them here, and I've already got one that I feel, and you're not gonna like my pick, but, and maybe this makes sense with my latest Katy Perry pick, but man, the one that stands out to me, and I don't listen to much new music these days. About 2015, I kind of fell off the map, but I've been hearing quite a bit of Sabrina Carpenter's Man's Best Friend. I would put near the list. I have not heard the Lady Gaga one. Oh, and Kendrick Lamar's G and X. Okay, so I'd put those two as my two contenders. I guess if I had to pick one that I would go with, uh, Sabrina Carpenter, man. Man's Best Friend, Espresso, some of those songs, she was on SNL. I've heard quite a bit off of that one. I like it. What about you, Joe?
I was thinking similar too, is I was thinking about Sabrina Carpenter because she's just everywhere right now. And to
Hmm.
win these things often has to do with PR and exposure. And for me, that's Bad Bunny.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's a good pick too, though.
I haven't listened to the full album, but he's doing the Super Bowl halftime show next week. He's had a massive cultural presence, global dominance, which is a big deal with the awards now. Industry momentum kind of feels aligned, and sometimes the award just follows the moment. Feels like it could be his coronation year.
Well, and I think that's a good pick. I got to brush up on my Spanish before the Super Bowl, and maybe I'll pick up that album and do
I
like a
don't think we listen to
Duolingo.
him because we're translating the words in our head. I think it's more beep boop bop sort of
Yeah,
music, from what I
it's
understand.
it's Gangnam Style, right? I don't even know
Yes.
what it means.
With no disrespect, Bad Bunny. I was just in Puerto Rico last month, and there's not a block you can go down without a mural of some sort of Bad Bunny on a wall. He's kind of all they got.
Well, and you own it, man. If that's what you got, put him up on a pedestal and do it. He's got some cool stuff. So yeah, I'm excited.
And the last thing I want to predict is the Hall of Fame. We've seen the finalists. We've talked about some of those snubs, but they're putting it down to the five that will get announced tonight, along with the NFL awards. Um, Mike, do you have any predictions for the first five? You looked into this at all? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I've looked into it. I know obviously the Belichick one. I mean, the obvious one is the wide receiver, like Larry Fitzgerald, right? I
Yeah,
mean, he's gonna be
he's
that's
first
am
ballot
I yeah,
eligible.
he's gonna be yeah, I'm not gonna be crazy to say Fitzgerald. Man, Drew Brees, I think is also gotta be a pick, right?
Also first ballot eligible.
Yeah, so I look at those two guys. I guess how many picks do you want me to give here, Joe?
Well,
Like
they
those
put
two are
in five.
locks, right? Yeah,
Um,
okay. So let me see here. Was Eli
you got
Manning? I
names
don't
like
know if
Adam
he's
Vinatieri, Jason Witten. You got some old school guys like I think Greenwood from the Pittsburgh Steelers in the '70s. You got Luke Kuechly, T Sizzle
I think some of those guys, Vinatieri probably deserves it.
to
But
kicker
it's a
though. I don't
kicker.
know if
It's a
any kickers are in
kicker.
the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. Maybe.
I don't know if it matters for kickers. And like he kicked a lot of game-winning field goals from like 35 yards out. It's like
I
these
mean,
weren't
come on, dude. The
60.
snow game.
Okay, but it was close.
Kicking
It
is
wasn't.
less about how many times you got the uprights. It's the moments that you have that define you. And it's playoff victory, off the field celebrations. If there's ever to be a kicker in the Hall of Fame, it's going to be Vinatieri.
I agree. And I think about his move from the Patriots to the Colts and winning for them too. And you go, oh, it's the kicker. That's the makes the difference. So yeah, I
What
agree.
about Eli Manning?
I like Eli mostly because he defeated the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl and made sure that the Dolphins were the only undefeated team in NFL history. So that's for me personally, I'm like, go for it. But honestly, his career was spotty. I think his brother is a clear better candidate. I think Eli
Well,
deserves to
Peyton's
be in.
already in. He got in
I
first
know,
ballot.
I know, and deservedly so. And I don't think Eli fits that boat. Do I think he deserves to be in the Hall? Dude, I am wishy-washy on Eli. I don't know.
Eli will get in at some point. It's just a question of is it now? Because when you have two Super Bowls and you played as
Yeah.
long as he had, he's got a lot of numbers, but he was never MVP caliber guy. You had that discussion during his career. Is he elite? It was almost a mockery
Mhm.
because he'd win the rings, but he wasn't as much of a regular season presence like a Josh Allen is. Um, but what a slap in the face that'd be to Belichick too, to watch the guy
Oh
that only
gosh.
defeated you had see Eli Manning get put in over you. Yikes. But my predictions are going to be the two you mentioned, Breeze and Fitz as a
Hmm.
lock. And then I'm going to go with Luke Kuechly and T
I agree.
Sizzle as the next two. And my fifth one's a wild card, and it could be another omen to Belichick, and it's Robert Kraft.
Oh,
And
dude, if oh my
if
gosh.
that happens, what a storyline. Belichick watching his former franchise owner go in while he awaits another year. Snubs don't just sting. They create drama, debate, legacy discussion, and that's exactly why we're doing this episode. And man, because between the Apple documentary that was pro Kraft, kind of anti Belichick, him now being in the Super Bowl only 2 years removed from moving on Belichick, it seems like the stars may align for Kraft, um, which will only hurt the positive PR we're getting from Belichick.
Yeah, I am not a fan of actually the only person on your those three that you mentioned, I think, was Kuechly. I would be okay with him getting in. I don't like the idea of Kraft at all,
Really?
especially over Belichick. It's an owner. I don't know what role did he play? Put the
Well,
right
owners
people
get
in.
in, and they're
So
not like coaches and players where they have an eligibility window. I think
Gotcha.
it's a different category. Like I
Yeah,
think
I
Jerry
mean,
Jones is in, I believe.
yeah, and I don't know. You spent billions of dollars. Good for you. You don't need a. You don't need a.
Wow, you're really
You don't need an
tarnishing the role
award.
he had in all of this. I mean, what's the theme here? He moved on from Brady and Belichick, and he's back. You got to give him some credit for that.
I don't. I don't give him any credit. Give Vrabel the credit. Give the guy that he's paying millions of dollars
It's
to win
not
some.
uh, dumb luck that the same organizations are tend to be good every few years, whether it be the Packers, the Broncos, the Ravens, the Patriots, versus teams like the Cardinals, the Browns, dare I say the Dolphins, that are more spotty with their success. I think the only theme with all these moving parts every year with coaches and players is ownership, weathering these storms and making rational decisions and not just reactively trying to sell hope every year rebuilding, which you see in dysfunctional organizations over and over, versus the ones like Robert Kraft who can commit to a rebuild and actually do it the right way. And you see where they are now. I think you got to give him more credit.
I don't.
Okay. You undervalued the ownership ability to sway a franchise more than Robert Kraft himself, it sounds like.
The problem I have with this is that he is even eligible to win this award. I don't think owners should be given
You
awards.
could argue that.
I think the accolades that they get, they definitely deserve. That they're already billionaires, multimillionaires. They're paying other people to do the thing. They should receive credit. What they shouldn't get is the awards. They shouldn't even be nominated. So that's personal opinion.
If we're doing a Mount Rushmore of best owners, I think of two people. I think of Jerry Buss from the Lakers and Robert Kraft, and everything else, I don't really know. You have to research it. But as far as what an owner should be doing and how the accolades they've done and the different teams they've had to assemble, and them being the common denominator, you got to give those guys credit. But whether or not they're worthy of being inducted in the Hall of Fame with coaches and players, that's debatable.
And that's okay. So if since he's eligible, should he get in? Yes. My distaste, the thing that gives me a really bad taste in my mouth, is that we're even having this discussion about that he's even eligible in the first place. Nothing against Kraft. The fact that owners are even eligible is a problem for me.
I think there should be separate halls for all three, both players, coaches, and owners.
Hey, we agree on that one. I know you're switching over to Katy Perry. I feel that, but
We're
we
not
definitely
quite there. We can agree on some things, but Dogma in your Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Mount Rushmore, and Katy Perry on your best artist on to win a Grammy, Mount Rushmore, that we will forever disagree on.
yeah, it's almost like somebody put the informant on theirs. I don't know. So
That's fair. That's fair. And you know what? I'm okay with that on my Mount Rushmore. I want that one set in stone.
it is. It's
I
there.
chose it over The Departed, goddammit.
Well, Joe, do you want to round us home? Did you have anything to wrap up here, man? So,
That's all I got. Close it out, Mike.
all right, man. Well, you've heard it, and we don't always agree. The question is who did it better? Joe's list, my list. I'm the only one with Katy Perry, so it's a pretty easy choice, I think, whichever way you're going. The reality is the question is what would you put onto your mountain? Until the next episode, this is the Mount Rushmore Show.